Good morning, AP Computer Science people. So basically this morning, we had a couple people who kind of sent me a message and canceled, so I'm not going to take 100% of the blame, but we had a couple people who called and said they weren't able to be in class today, so there was only a few of you that I knew were going to be able to show up, so I thought it'd be a lot more productive to kind of go through one of the tools on code.org that you're going to be using for the rest of the year. Not just this semester, but for the rest of the year. You're going to be using this tool a little bit. Now, we talked about how we are introducing JavaScript. Mostly second semester, we're doing the intro to programming right now. So you're getting that drag and drop, those drag and drop tutorials. And hopefully you've been logging into code.org and doing those puzzles, which I'm going to show you how to access today. If you haven't, make sure you're doing that because it's going to make doing your PT and any kind of drag and drop coding that you have to do for the course so much easier if you try to complete these puzzles. Now, the puzzles are not included in the OHS, but they are included in code.org. And like I told you earlier in the year, if you're not using the code.org curriculum and all the resources available, then you're missing out because they're amazing. Next year, I'm probably going to try to port the course to where we just use code.org, but we just wanted to kind of trial it this year. So let's jump into code.org and let me show you first of all where you can access these little puzzles, and then I'm going to show you what the web app looks like. The app maker, I can't remember exactly what they call it. We'll check it out. I'll show you how to use it and just kind of like do something simple with it. I'm not even sure what we're going to do. This is all just on the fly, so we'll see what happens. So computer science principles, you know how to get to the course. This is like the course material. This looks a little bit different for you than it does for me. You're going to see just a couple more things. I'm going to see if I can look at it in student mode. There is a way, but I don't exactly know how to do it. So let's just go to unit 3, for example, intro to programming. So this is what all of you are seeing. Here we go, view as a teacher. There we go, or view as a student. All right, so this is what you're seeing exactly. So one thing you want to look at is inside this intro to programming languages and algorithms and all this kind of stuff. There's these really cool little modules, like for example, let's go to creating functions. So there's these cool little challenges, and hopefully I'm going to be able to find one really quick. If not, it's going to be frustrating. But you'll notice you're going to be bringing up this thing right here, this thing called App Lab. That's what they call it. So App Lab. And inside of App Lab, you're going to be able to do all these little challenges. Define a function called turnaround, which turns the turtle around once you define the function. And it gives you the tools necessary to do this, which is really cool. Like it only opens up the tools that you would need. So for example, down here under toolbox, you have functions and the turtle. Now this is not the full turtle. There's hundreds of turtle commands, but it gives you 4, and these are the 4 that you would need. So for example, if I wanted to create a function, I would drag and drop this over, create a function called, I think it actually tells you to call it turnaround, right? So turnaround, and then we would put in the things that we would want the turtle to do in order to turn around. So for example, I would want to move it forward, then I would turn to the left. Now you'll notice, does left have an argument? Okay, it's automatically 90. So some parameters are going to be designated for you. Let's see if we can, let's turn left first. And this is what's so cool about drag and drop programming languages, is that you can just kind of drag and drop, change things, and it really is a good visual. Now the cool thing about this is JavaScript. Okay, so if you're paying attention, this is JavaScript. This is the exact syntax that you're going to be using whenever we start talking more and more about JavaScript, and we get out of this drag and drop and we actually start coding it by hand. Is there a way to show text? Yeah, cool. So I totally forgot about this function. I'm just doing this all on the fly on the video, so this is great. So for example, if you go to show text at the top right, it's going to show you what the JavaScript looks like. Which is cool. JavaScript's kind of a unique looking programming language. It has a lot of keywords like function. So before you do a variable, you put var. Before you do a function, you put function. So there's all these like keywords. So it's kind of like a cross between the easier programming languages like Python and then maybe the harder Java, C# type languages where you're doing a lot of assignments and things like that. So it's kind of in the middle. So this is JavaScript. So if you want to know what any of these puzzles look like in JavaScript, hit that show text button. Now, show blocks is going to be much easier. I prefer doing it in text mode just because I'm used to JavaScript. As we get on through the year, we'll start disabling the block mode so that you're going to have to do it in JavaScript. So make sure you're paying attention now. Just get you a leg up on everybody else when we start doing programming. So this is the spot that most of you are inevitably getting to, and then whenever you try to run it, you're going to get this little scary sound or something. I'll show you what it sounds like. If it lets me move on. Oh, there you go. Keep working. So remember, it's not enough just to put a function out there. It's not enough just to define the function in code. We always have to call our code. So that's the 2 steps that you're going to have to really get used to when it comes to function programming. Now, when we start doing object-oriented programming, you're going to have the same steps. You're just going to do it a little bit differently, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Right now, we're talking about sequential programming using functions, meaning that we define a function called turnaround, but we always have to call it. So let's drag that over. If I can grab it, connect it to the bottom, and we're going to call it. Now make sure that you change this name and make sure that it perfectly matches the turnaround function. So now it's been called. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to pop a comment in here just to remind you guys, call it. All right, so there's our comment. And remember, you can always hit show text. There it is. That's exactly what it looks like in JavaScript. Now, in JavaScript, I would add some white space to this just because that's me. So remember, white space in JavaScript does not really matter, okay? So indenting and things like that, they don't matter. It's not going to change the way your code runs like Python, for example. So in Python programming language, indentation matters. White space matters. JavaScript, it doesn't matter. It's only for you. It's the way it looks. However, capitalization does matter. Okay, so for example, the variable turnaround is different than the variable name turnaround with a capital A. Okay, so be very careful to make sure that your capitalization matches across your function definitions, your function calls, things like that. All right, and so like I say, if this all seems overwhelming, that's okay. Then make sure that you go back in code.org, start at lesson 1 of Intro to Programming, and work through those units because it's very, very important that you work through those. And then you learn kind of these basic concepts of programming. So hopefully you are doing this. And I'll know whenever I grade your PTs if you guys have been practicing these. So let's go back to show blocks and let's try running this now. So if we run this, we're going to reset our app and we're going to run it. And sure enough, it goes really fast and it turns around and it goes forward. So I would have finished this one. Congratulations, you completed puzzle 3. So we turned it around, and like I said, it turns 90 degrees by default, so left twice. You will be able later, and if you wanted to go into the JavaScript, you could actually, let's see, you could actually define, you could actually add to that and put your own parameter in. I can show you how to do that right now. So for example, on turn left, rather than turn left 90, we could do 180, and then take this out. And I don't know if this necessarily works in the puzzle mode. It does in the app lab mode, but we can check it out to see. Yeah, cool. So it let me it let me do a little, change my parameter to 180. And then I could run down here, call my function, and it should turn it around with just one piece of code. Now remember, it does. So it's a major thing in programming. We want to use as little code as possible. Okay, so you want to do it in as few lines as possible, and that's a challenge you can do on your own. Okay, so the code.org is not going to track. It's not going to tell you that you're wrong. Even if I do this, if I said turn left 1 degree and did that 180 times, it's still going to give me it's going to tell me I did it right. But that's not the most efficient way to do it. So try to challenge yourself to use as few lines as possible. All right, there's almost always ways that we can kind of refine our code and get it down to the minimal, which in this case is this. This is the minimal that you can turn this thing around with. So that's cool. So that's App Lab, and that's, this is going to throw you into App Lab. Now, as we go through the year, you're going to start really building with App Lab. You're going to start doing like designing and all kinds of stuff. So I would encourage you to, on your own time, because you're going to need this for your PT anyway, use code.org's App Lab to play around. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So when you go to code.org's home screen, at the top, you're going to see projects. Now, there's a direct link to this in the OHS as well, but I'm going to show you from here. And then let's go to App Lab. So now it's going to look the same, but the difference is you now have all the tools available to you. They're not restricting the amount of tools that you have. They're giving you, all these tools. So let's look, you've got UI controls. This is stuff that you want your user to be able to get in there and do things with. You've got data, you've got program, control flow is what this is supposed to be called. Control flow, it controls how these are your for loops, your while loops, do whiles, things like that. We have variables, so how to define values, how to hold values, and things like that. Math, Turtle, these are just two built-in JavaScript objects that they're letting you use. So we'll learn about objects a little bit later in the year. You're going to learn about object-oriented programming. Math and Turtle are just two objects. They're just two JavaScript objects. They're just very, very big objects that we use to manipulate You know, like I said, things like math and stuff like that. But you'll learn about that later in the year. For example, we have math.round here, and I'm just doing a little intro just to, you know, take up some time on the video, which I don't think it's going to let me drag just a math.round. Yeah, we'd have to put it inside of a function, but wish we could do that now just to do it because I want to see what it looks like. So, for example, math.round, which I guess we have to put it, I'm trying to think, we have to put it inside of, oh well. So, math.round. So math is the object. Round is a method or a function that is connected to that math object. So the way that you access that in JavaScript is by doing math dot and then the name of the method and then the open and close parentheses. So just like you do calling a function that you wrote in your standard programming language, like in your standard, just I wrote a function and then I'm calling a function. It's the same thing. The math object is just located somewhere out on, you know, in the JavaScript world that we don't have to see it. It's just a big long sheet of code that some genius wrote and we don't have to deal with it. All right. So let's go to, let's just do something really quick and then that way I can show you how this works. Now, we're not going to go over to the design or the data side yet. That'll be probably next week. And then the next week, I'm going to give you an intro to the design portion over here, which is where you can like create your UI. It's pretty cool. Like I said, this is basically like creating a little iPhone app. And the cool thing about App Lab, and this is what I haven't told you that, is you can access the URL on your phone, like on your iPhone, and it will pop up as a full screen app. So anything you create on here, you can pull up on your iPhone and show your friends or your parents or whoever and say, hey, look this, I designed this little app. I designed this, which is really cool. But today we're just going to look at the code. So we have all this available to us. So let's just do something. I mean, I don't even know what we're going to do. This is going to be, it's going to be really elementary, but let's do it. So let's first define two variables. So we go to variables. We want some values. We'll drag our variable over. We'll call this variable x. That's fine. And let's make it equal to 12. Okay. So there we go. Variable x equal to 12. Perfect. We have our first variable. I know I'm going to need one more. So let's grab another one. Let's call this one y. And let's make this equal to 10. Okay. So y is defined. So remember, the little yellow ones, they're not bad. They're just telling you that there's something that you still need to do, which they're saying, hey, you have an x variable, you have a y variable, but you're not using them yet, okay? Which can be really interesting whenever you get some really long programs. It's nice to be able to be like, well, wait, why did I define that if I'm not even using it? And the code's done, you can just get rid of it. It's an extra line of code. So let's go to, let's log it. Let's math it and then log it. Okay, so let's do console.log. And just instead of logging just the numbers, we'll do x plus y. Okay, x plus y. All right, so now this is a super simple program. It doesn't get any easier than this, but let's just see how it looks. So we can look at show text. This is what it looks like in JavaScript. It looks pretty much the same. Put a piece of white space there. JavaScript's cool too because it like color codes it and stuff. But console.log. Now, normally when you're using JavaScript, rather than console.log, we do document.write because we're using it on a web page, but that's beyond the scope of what we're doing right now. So all you need to know is that console is what this object is called, all right? It's actually down here. See debug console? Everyone see that? It's the name of this console at the bottom. So what we're saying is console dot log, being log is the function that we're accessing that will print this to that box down there. Now normally, like I said, you'll do document.write, document being the web page, and write being the function. So like I said, you know, I'll explain it a little bit better when we get into object-oriented programming, but for now, just know that console.log gives us the ability to log whatever we want down here to this debugging console. So let's do this. Let's just run it. Show blocks, and let's run this thing. Boop. There you go. So we run it, and sure enough, down here to our log. Now this looks like really, really small, so it may be hard to see for you, but it does say 22, which, if my memory serves me correctly, 10 plus 12 is 22. This is correct. Now we could do something a little bit more complicated with this. Let's go to functions. I don't know. I'm trying to think. Now let's go to control. Let's put in a for loop. So let's drop a for loop in here, and let's say. And I'll just leave these. And the cool thing is it actually sets up the for loop for you. Here's all three steps of the for loop. It defines a variable, a placeholder, I equals 0. So it's going to start at 0. It's going to say while I is less than 4, but let's do, yeah, because 4 is the maximum amount of space that fits in the console, so let's make this a little bit bigger. And let's do 10. All right, so while I is less than 10. And then I++ just means after this executes whatever we're going to put in here, it adds 1 to I, okay? So in theory, this code should run 9, 10 times, but we'll see what happens. So console, let's bring this in here. Let's get rid of our little white space. And there we go. So we have 4 now, I equals 0, while I is less than 10, do I++, and console.log x plus y. So now in theory, if I've done this correctly, it should log 22 to the console 9 or 10 times. So let's see what happens. So reset the code, run it, and boop, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. So what it's done is it's logged, it looked at when I was equal to 0, it logged 22. Then it added 1, I equals 1, it logs 22. I equals 2, it logs 22. Now, we could change this by doing x plus I. Check this out. All right, so yeah, it's still saying, yeah, you don't need this, so let's get rid of this one. Now, like I said, you can have variables in your code that you don't use. That's no problem, but let's just, to make it happy, and it won't give us that little caution symbol. So let's do 4 now. Let's see if this changes it up a little bit. Let's just see the changes. A little bit different, right? So when I equals 0, it does x plus 0, and it logs 12. Then it adds 1 to I, so x plus I equals 13, 14, 15, 16, all the way up to 21. So we could do this. We can make this as big as we want. We could change some parameters around just to play around with this. I equals 99. This is going to run. Hopefully this doesn't crash it because it's a lot. Pew, but it doesn't. So now look at all these console logs. It logs 99 different consoles, or 99 different values to the log. So this is just a really quick run through. Like I said, play around with this, mess around, try to write some programs, try to do some stuff. And then next week for my recording that I'll send out on Thursday, I'll send out a walkthrough of the design portion. So how to create little, how to get your user to type in their own numbers and things like that. So we'll talk about that next week. I know this video is just kind of like random and off the hip, but hopefully this gives you a brief overview of the App Lab, which is a really good tool on code.org that we're going to be using for the rest of the year. Thank you guys so much for paying attention and watching this whole long video. Please send me an email today if you have any feedback, have any questions. Good luck with the puzzles, and good luck with your PT. Remember, your PT will be, you can use App Lab to do your PT. If you've not looked at your PT yet, make that a priority today. Jump into the last week of the last week of instructional cycle 3 and check out your performance task activity, which is 50% of your midterm assessment. So thank you guys so much. Again, I cannot wait to see you all on Tuesday. Have an amazing day.